Okay, doke. All right, I think we're started. I think we're live. So, welcome everybody for this not impromptu, but not debate, but discussion I'm having with BronxBlogger, who brought the idea up to me. And since you brought the idea up, go ahead and well, man, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, I think that enough time has passed um, since the birth of this bread tube left tube wave that's come up in the last 8 months, 6 months. What would you call it? A year?
Mm-hmm. Around that, yeah.
From like when American Johnson did the the Pewdie pipeline, I think is kind of the big landmark, right?
Uh huh.
For this new brand of like left YouTuber sort of post ContraPoints.
I gotcha. Yeah, it seems BreadTube's been around for roughly that time. It's hard to put a single event on the start, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Well, these are transitional periods, right? So I've been doing this for a long time, for years. I was first around for Atheism Plus. Do you remember that?
Atheism Plus, yes.
When the skeptics first broke off, I was part of that little Steve Shives, Christy Winters crew.
Uh huh.
When TJ and all those people broke off from atheism, and then over I don't know, like right before the 2016 election, we became ostensibly like anti-Sargonites. It was me, Mike Rollins, Christy Winters, Steve Shives, Tim Blake. You remember these names?
Uh huh.
Our big antagonists were Bearing, Jeff Holiday, Sargon, Shoe on Head. That'd be a crop of YouTubers that I think you would start to recognize.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, even though I
Because
wasn't like super active in this time frame, those are still ringing bells to me. Yeah.
we were badly outnumbered at the time.
Yeah, I
We
got that.
didn't
Yeah.
have anybody. We didn't have any Peter Coffin. We didn't have. I mean, we knew those people, and we were in circles with those people, but they did not have the. I don't want to use clout because that's such a fucking. But like they didn't have this weight that they have on the platform now.
Right.
So Coffin was around, but I think he was in sketch comedy stuff, and then sometime during the anti-Sargonite era, he started to come up with or adversaries started to become more popular.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in that group of anti-Sargonites towards the end. Um, ContraPoints, of course, had been around for a long time. This is like ContraPoint's third iteration as a YouTuber. She had been around even significantly longer than me. She had been around from like 2008, 9. She had been around in the sort of proto skeptic discourse, and then she disappeared for a while, and she came back, and she went through her journey on her channel, and also in terms of her views. Um, and so a lot of my focus was on pushing back against the alt right. Are you aware of my relationship to that situation?
Not the specifics of it. I know you've like always been kind of I want to say a force against the alt right. I don't. I mean, I know that's
Mhm.
kind of like been what you've been doing for the longest time, and you've been pretty consistent in those views and things like that. But I'm not intimately familiar with what you've done. No, so if you'd like to tell me.
Well, I got a little bit alienated from some of the um, Democratic boosters within the anti-Sargonite community at that time. They were more concerned about pro-Clinton, pro-Democrat politics,
Mm-hmm.
and that eventually became a breaking point where the more left-wing people in the group, the anarchists, the communists, even the social democrats. I mean, Tim Blake is a pretty moderate dude. Mike Rollins, those New Zealand guys, they're like social democrats. They're not even like heavy hardcore. Clinton is, she's a corporate neoliberal. So to me, to hew your left wing political group, the left wing political group of Twitter at the time, Twitter, well, effectively YouTube, towards being Clinton boosters, a lot of us got, alienated out. And, me and ranting feminists were in that group. Me and Yana were in that group. Me and a lot of people that are very, very um, blood vendetta with me right now. We used to be in that group. We used to look out for each other against the liberal Democrats. And then I became too extreme for that group, which is the Social Democrats, Bernie Sanders group. And that's how we landed here, because now apparently I'm the purity police for this. Again, a Bernie Social Democrat version of left YouTube, which is kind of like the two top personalities, I guess, are Peter Coffin and ContraPoints.
Okay. So you would consider yourself further to the left of Peter Coffin and ContraPoints?
Oh, sure.
Oh, sure.
Oh, sure. Far, far to their left.
Okay.
For a lot of reasons, in terms of, you got to remember, the last time that something like this played out, not to overstate YouTube's thing, but like usually because we're sort of in the midst of a society collapsing right now. That's what the last 10 years have been. Is like the capitalist paradigm is collapsing in slow motion since like the 2008 disaster, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
That was the beginning of the decay and the collapse. At that time, I was a liberal Democrat, and I got alienated from that group because I became an ML. I became like a Guevara type ML, right? So I got put out by the Obama zombies. The king of that group was called @Shock. I think he's still around. SHOQ. I got put out of that gang for not being an Obama zombie, and it's just kind of like, again, it's not woe is me, because I'm representative of a group of people that are so far to the left that we keep getting, when these groups are at the bottom, they have a very wide coalition to include us marginalized people, right? And us radical thinkers. And then when revenue comes, when Patreon comes and all that stuff, all of a sudden they want broad coalitions and they want big numbers because that translates financially. You know what I mean?
I can get what you're saying, yeah.
So then they turn around and they start kicking us and telling us to fuck off and stop alienating viewers, and everybody can come play. Jeff Holiday can come play. Sean Head can come play because they bring numbers, they bring money. It's the problem here is leftism under capitalism. See, to me, I don't believe that's possible. I think that leftist projects under capitalism, if they involve power, if it's your living, if it's your job to be a leftist, failed.
Okay.
You can, I'd like to see what your position or your opinion of that.
I think it's a really tough issue because, of course, anything we do under capitalism, it needs resources. We need man hours, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
We need resources. We need, also a lack of a better term, clout. Because, of course, you don't want to have a message that no one hears, right? If you actually want to affect change, you want a lot of people to come and hear it. And I think it's tough because to a certain extent, I do agree. Like, if you want to actually enact change, that requires numbers. And to enact more numbers, sometimes you do have to make compromises. Sometimes you do have to soften edges. And sometimes you have to reach out to people who aren't, 100% in line ideologically with you, which is probably true anyway, right? Like, no one is perfectly 100% ideologically aligned with any other individual, right? There's got to be something that they disagree on. So to a certain extent, I think it's unfair to think that any sort of reach out for any sort of emphasis on getting bigger numbers is purely financially motivated. Of course, that could play a part in some places.
No. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's pure cynicism. I think that capitalism takes your survival incentives and makes them married to money. Mm-hmm. And I think that human beings are animals. That's fine. And our survival instinct, it overrides a lot of other things in our brain. And I think when you depend on this to survive, you start to lose your moral tether because that reptile brain starts to, you know what I mean? You start to defend yourself because all you can see is people taking food. You're not thinking about deeper, abstract, esoteric ideology and philosophical things because you're thinking about, well, the Patreon's paying my rent this month, or the Patreon is, you understand?
Yeah, of course. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So really quickly, I am concerned. Again, I took a lot of shit for this.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's not just me. I represent a community of people that are of this opinion, that the money is a problem. The money alienates the lower rung from the top. We're basically recreating capitalism under it, with a left brand on it. That's a big concern for me.
Okay. So the money involved in the whole breadtube sphere is a problem. And let me try to restate your opinion just to make sure that I understood it correctly, and feel free to interrupt me
Sure.
and tell me what I got wrong. So you're concerned that breadtube creators who have gotten some success and gotten some money off of Patreon, that's kind of, not a switch, but it is a gradual process by the more they start to get patrons and the more they start to see this as, I rely on this to make my living. And it doesn't even have to be a lavish lifestyle, like, it pays the bills. The more that they rely on this and the more conscious they are of, well, I need people coming to my videos and streams and what have you to pay my money, and I can't alienate a lot of them by speaking views that may turn away a ton of people, that necessarily is an impediment towards the leftist causes that you would most advocate for. Am I getting that mostly correct?
I believe there's a moral hazard that needs to be talked out. And I think that once I started to even raise the moral hazard, people started to think that I was like putting people in the gulag. Okay, so here's a qualifier.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people that make money on social media that are disabled.
Mm-hmm.
And I would never, ever challenge their bona fides. I would never challenge why they're doing what they're doing or what it does, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because most of the creators that are disabled, they are subsistence workers in terms of social media. They're just kind of scraping, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned about what I've always been concerned about, which is class.
Mm-hmm.
I'm concerned about how when the money gets to a certain point, we're talking about a threshold problem, not a general problem. I mean, making money online makes you not a leftist. I'm concerned as we cross certain thresholds financially that we recreate the same shitty dynamics of capitalism, rich people, poor people, and you know what I'm saying? See the problem? Like it's the same extremity reproducing itself with different branding.
Can you describe some of those dynamics that when you meet this threshold of wealth, and I'm assuming like this is not like an exact threshold, but just like a theoretical concept of a threshold. Can you describe some of those dynamics that change, that recreate capitalism? When let's say a bread tuber who's been making explicitly leftist content makes above a certain amount of money off of what they do, their interactions change. Can you give me or just explain a little bit more about that if you don't care?
Okay, so let's look at the initiation of ContraPoints into the liberal media, mainstream media sphere, right? Which was this was our big fireworks moment where the left was going to be legitimized and we were going to come up.
Mm-hmm.
That's where these problems started, right? Which was how the media framed what ContraPoints was doing and why it was good. ContraPoints was brought in as a de-radicalization factor. She was brought in as an actor for moderation and a bulwark against extremism. But the thing that I don't think she realizes, and the thing that I don't think her audience realizes, and what's supposed to be implicit here, is that she's supposed to be de-radicalizing both ends of the spectrum. She's supposed to be defending the existing liberal order from extremists and radicals. Now, Richard Spencer, a plantation heir, being a radical race nationalist is definitely different from me and my faction of people being hyper impoverished, marginalized financially, victims of multi-generational poverty, and being radical.
Mm-hmm.
My radicalism does not involve the genocide of a group of people. With anarchism, there's such a thing as justification, and I would say that the people who are black radicals or queer radicals are different from race radicals and race nationalists and stuff like that. So
Of course,
I don't think both ends of the spectrum need moderating. I think that only one end of the spectrum needs moderating. But right now, where Contra and Peter Coffin are is this standard mainstream media position of like, fuck the extreme left, fuck the extreme right. And you know what I'm saying? Like that to me is old hat, and I think it's sort of like a poison pill.
Okay. And I'm gonna try to restate just to make sure I understood. So when Contra kind of broke into the mainstream, we'll call it, that was like our big break, but she was billed as a de-radicalizing agent instead of a leftist agent.
Correct.
So, and
meaning she was not presented it's almost like they told her what the price of admission was. If you look at the way the articles and then the interviews and stuff were framed, it was like, we're going to let you in, but remember why you're here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it definitely billed as she wasn't promoting left wing stuff. She was countering very, very right wing stuff. Excuse me.
Right. She was countering. I believe that ContraPoints felt I from having been in circles with her and having had passing interactions with her,
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe that ContraPoints came into this with a desire to push back against the alt right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a bad faith assumption about that. My concern is that when she was brought into, like, let's say, like The Hill and stuff like that, those mainstream Washington establishment media transformed that, and they did what they always do, which is to take this momentum, this populist momentum that ContraPoint had for social justice, right, which was explicit at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and turn it into a to turn her into an icon for moderation,
Okay.
quiet things down, you know.
Okay. So you by billing her and kind of sort of that whole movement as the whole goal is to tone things down. Necessarily could be just even though they're much different ideologies, it's always bringing things back to the center. So it's not just you're pulling to the right towards the center, but you're also kind of pulling from the left too. It's like you're encompassing gravity at the center by being a de-radicalizing agent instead of pulling things explicitly in one direction.
The more she subscribed to that, the more power and attention she got.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it. I understand how the mechanism of the human mind works. It's a come up. It's what you get in capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
It's all right. Are you going to lead the revolution, or are you going to? This is like a Freikorps situation of, like, social democrat gets in, and then the establishment says, well, you can change things, but you're going to have to drop the truncheon on all the radicals, no matter who they are. And again, I'm not saying that ContraPoints is some kind of like a malicious person. But I am saying that, as usual, this is a systematic critique. This is a class critique. This is a capitalist critique. This is about what the system did to good intentions, and where we are at now, what the byproduct, what the remains of that are.
Okay, that makes a. I think I understand what you're saying. So going forward, I guess I have a couple of questions. One regarding something you said that is related to this from a while ago, but just for right now. So what would you kind of recommend in this situation? Like, if we are looking at this from a class perspective, how ought we treat, I guess, left tubers, bread tubers, whatever you want to call it, who start to get more mainstream appeal and start to appeal to those that center just because of name recognition alone?
We need to be very careful, and we finally landed back on the word that has a lot of stigma on it, which is gatekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to me, what gatekeeping means is making sure that you don't get co-opted, and that grifters and hucksters don't come in through the back door. Once people like Jeff Holiday and Shoe on Head started to come in through the back door, I knew there was going to be trouble. And again, you guys are young, and you were not around for the last version of this when they were on the other side. So maybe you don't know these people.
I'm 29, by the way.
Right, so I'm 10 years older than you.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't around for the last version of this where they were the villains. These people were in the pocket of the alt-right. Like, if you check out, Jeff Holiday's connection to...
yeah, I'm aware.
It's not incidental. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
If you check Shoe on Head's connection to Lawrence Southern, it wasn't passing. It was deep. It was a personal relationship between a major race supremacist figure. And the same thing with sort of, Holiday has rehabilitated himself somewhat, but again, he is still an anti-SJW. He is still an anti-feminist, and Shoe on Head is still an anti-feminist. And they're broader people, but again, it's the problem of, like, this opening doors to people like that. You are not building a bigger coalition by bringing those people in. You're just building a bigger number count on one platform, because I guarantee you the number of leftists that get alienated from Chew on Head and Jeff Holiday's anti-feminist is way bigger. You're just being deceived by the numbers on YouTube, but YouTube is not the world. YouTube is a closed platform of mostly reactionary people that are there for gaming content. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
It's not an adequate sample of the world at large.
No, yeah, of course. Yeah, no, yeah,
we shouldn't confuse has whatever. Yeah, sorry, because she has like 500,000 subscribers. So it doesn't mean that she's mainstream. It just means that she has a big number of that platform's audience.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah, I agree with you there, and I could see the argument that if you don't gatekeep and bring in people from the center or even the right, you're not building a bigger thing. You're just shifting that bubble, and eventually the people who are further left in your original bubble are going to be pushed out. Like eventually they won't be welcome.
Okay, look at the atheist community.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the interview that Valsh had with TJ the other day.
Uh-huh.
That could be BreadTube's journey. Very soon, that could be your journey, and maybe it won't be to Nazis, but it will be to reactionary neoliberal forces. You understand? And you guys will end up being hippie punchers without even realizing it.
So I'm sorry, I didn't understand that last sentence. I'm sorry.
You guys can end up being hippie punchers without even realizing.
Okay.
You see the problem?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're just the same old establishment. It's just a bunch of white people playing musical chairs, and these are more moderate and these are more liberal, but that nothing ever actually changes. You need to remember, when people sort of see me as a very sort of malicious, antagonistic force, I come from the bottom, and I'm still here now. You can do the research, I am at the poorest place in this country. I'm in the poorest congressional district in this country. I've lived here all my life. Right now, the Bronx is the epicenter of the COVID-19 epidemic. That's a class problem. So when people come to me and talk about moderation and stuff like that, you need to remember, just like your survival incentives are towards moderations, mine are towards radicalism and extremism, because moderate reforms don't make it to where I live. Moderate reforms aren't going to help my people in the class sense. You understand?
Yeah.
It's not personal, because I feel guilt, because you approached me as a relatively polite person, early on when these things started happening, and I was in a high attack position against you, against Chud Logic, a couple of the younger people who were reformers, right? I mean, you were essentially reformers of trying to build a broad coalition of creators,
right?
But to me, a lot of those people I had deep trauma with. A lot of those people had sustained social media bullying campaigns against me and friends of mine. So it is extremely hard for us. It's like when Lacey tried to bring Sargon into our thing and create an alliance there. I don't know if you're around for that.
I have very vague notions of it. Mostly sitting on that one picture. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, sure, I know.
Yeah.
So Lacey was the last person that tried to bring the two communities together, and you saw how that went.
Yeah, as far as I know, would pretty fairly be described as an anti-SJW now. Is that about right?
Correct.
Okay.
And I am telling this younger generation of creators, they will not come to you. You will go to them, because capitalism will bring you towards them. Capitalism will bring you towards numbers and bring you towards money. And you know who has money? People who have power. So you're not going to be a left-wing movement that makes big money, because that's not how it works. Because the leftism is about powerlessness, bringing power to the powerless. If you go towards power, you will get consumed by whatever, neoliberal capitalists, alt-right fascists. You'll get sucked in there, because that, like TJ said, the money and the offer, the devil's offer will be irresistible, because it's the ultimate offer under capitalism of safety.
Okay. I get what you're saying here. I'm fairly certain. That's just it's not necessarily that it's going to happen, or not necessarily that it's going to fully happen this exactly every time. There's not going to be a switch flipped the second you make over 50 grand from Patreon or something. But as you start to be more successful and start to gain more capital and therefore gain more power and more influence, those dynamics are necessarily going to change. and
And it
you're
won't have anything to do with or it won't predominantly have anything to do with moral fabric. It will have to do with the machine that you're in. The system is more powerful. The whole matrix of your brain, of ContraPoint's brain, of Peter Coffin's brain has formed under capitalism. So this devil's bargain is literally in like the fucking pathways of our brains. Who would turn down the ability to buy a house? Who would turn down long-term income? Who would turn down an opportunity to move up in a structure that is so immobile as the one that we live under? Who would necessarily turn that down? It's a hard thing to do.
mm-hmm. Oh yeah, certainly. And your perspectives are always shift based on your own experiences. So let me see if you agree with this analogy here. So, of course, here in America, we have a notion of what poverty is, and what would
Yes.
we think that rich people should always should pay a little bit more and such and things of that nature. But if you put it in a global perspective, even someone who's relatively poor here has considerably more than someone in some like a third world. And the thought of a poor, if you are an impoverished person here, but you can still, I grew up very, very poor as well, but we still had like Super Nintendo and things like that. The thought of like giving that up, because technically I'm still one of the wealthiest people in the world, seems incredibly unfair to me. Even though it would theoretically even things out and help the like globally impoverished. It just because that's where my mindset is right here, because that's where my frame of reference is. It's been shifted just by my own personal surroundings, and I'm always gonna just by necessity, since I can only think for myself, I'm always gonna put my needs first.
If we had a global communist system, a global because we have a globally integrated capitalist system, that's clear.
Mm-hmm.
But if we had a global capitalist system, I believe that the average person, if they were guaranteed food, shelter, they would not be as preoccupied with creature comforts and having creature comforts to hold over the heads of others and having creature comforts to give us a sense of security. Because there is a psychology to the Super Nintendo, right? Because I had when I was a kid.
Yeah.
There is a stigmatic component. There is a component of if I have this, that means that I belong and I'm safe in this position.
Oh
I
yes,
can't
definitely.
slide down and back. And sure, yeah, there's a hell of a lot of people in this country that are beneath me. And I'm in the bad place, but there are people that are homeless right now. There are people that are institutionalized right now that are way worse. In America, it can always get worse. And in global corporate capitalism, it can always get worse. But what we need to do is be careful that people don't stop momentum, that our own leaders don't turn around and go, you know what, guys, not that bad. Maybe we should relax, take it easy, don't be so aggressive, calm down, quiet down. Let's just all make money and go home. You need to be careful about that stuff because once that ball starts rolling, look, YouTube's a capitalist platform, buddy. We need to be very, very careful that's our big megaphone, and Twitter and all that stuff. Even though people don't make money directly on Twitter, Twitter still has advertising.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to be extremely careful that we do not, because capitalism is a co-opting machine. It's a recuperation machine.
Right.
So what they're going to do is they're going to see someone amongst us or a few of us making headway. And when they see us making headway, they're going to go, we have a seat for you right here in the existing order. Don't worry, you don't need to change anything. And then those people will turn around and they will do what's done now, which is they will coordinate the mob against the radicals and talk about how we need to calm down and take it easy. And that's an assertion of safety and luxury. That's not, to me, that's not a future for change, which I think we all want. I think that, look, the extreme poor, global and local, and middle class and upper middle class people all want change. But I mean, again, they're going to probably offer to you because you're closer. I mean, let's say not to you specifically, but let's say ContraPoints, right? At her level, she's closer to being upper middle class.
Mm-hmm.
So the existing upper middle class is going to go, just relax. We'll take care of you. You can still say your stuff, but we'll bring you inside. Good for her, but that fucks over everybody else. It's a very common thing. So I'm just saying, these are not deal breakers. We just need to be aware of moral hazard. We need to be aware of being too amenable to this idea of winning. I think that a lot of the kicking at woke schools is that somehow we're stopping the more moderate forces from winning. And I think now that Bernie is out of the game, I think that a lot of that stuff has been stripped naked. This idea that if we're just moderate enough, we'll win. That's been stepped in the balls. And if you look at Chapo right now, Chapo, the capital of Bernie discourse, has decided they're going to kick at identity politics again, and they're going to kick at um, wokeness instead of kicking at capitalism. And this is the standard shit in America, which is to punch down. So that's an issue to me, and that I don't want to be part of a movement, because I was there at the beginning of BreadTube. That can be verified. I don't want to be part of a movement that kicks back.
Okay. Uh, so you're having the concern that because as we grow in any kind of stretch of the imagination, especially if we kind of start very, very small, start very much toward the left, as we grow more and more, and then this is kind of reiterating what I said earlier, as we grow more and more, we do want to gather people. We do want to appeal to perhaps moderates. Maybe I think we do focus way too much on like changing the alt-right and bringing them over. We don't focus much on moderates. We do want to bring them over to our side because we want to gain this sort of power, however you think of it, because we want our ideas to manifest itself in the world in some way, shape, or form. But there's a danger of when, for example, that doesn't work, like when Bernie doesn't win, or when certain policies or certain movements that we are trying to put forward don't come across. There's an over tendency to look to our left, to the people who are too far to the left, that are scaring away the moderates, as that's the reason we're not growing. To a certain extent,
where is the power? That's
where's the
question.
power?
The power is in the moderates because they're more comfortable.
Right.
So the more radical people are more at risk. So if you look at those two groups and you're a leftist and you're about diffusing power, you don't go to moderates. You go through moderates or you drag moderates, but you don't go to moderates if your goal is to diffuse power.
Yeah, but how would you? I guess this is my biggest question for you. How do you gain the ability to tackle power, to change the power systems without accruing it yourself?
How do you change without coming up within capitalism? That's the question.
Right.
Okay. So what you are doing is you are attacking. It's the question of attacking a big monster when it's at full power or when it's sputtering.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, more than ever, this system is badly mortally wounded. We have two decisions to make here. We try to preserve it, which I think that even the Bernie crowd has now been disillusioned of this idea that this is salvageable, or at least I hope they do. Then there is we got to do the coup de grace here. We gotta strike the mortal blow and scratch this and build up from the bones, because in my opinion, that's all that's left right now. And I want to make a comparative metaphor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the way that Bernie voters felt, what Bernie voters felt the Hillary loss meant about that level of reform and that level of preserving the establishment, leftists feel that way about the Bernie thing not working out. Is like, okay, so this proves that this is not a productive moderation. This was wasted because it didn't do anything. There's no path to, like, I just don't understand what's the path to come up in a system this corrupt and broken.
I guess I'm really just because I think you're right. I'm much closer to reformist than the other option, just because I'm very, very concerned that if we destroy what we have right now or intentionally like accelerate things into ruin, there's no guarantee that what comes out on the other side is better, and it's probably likely that it comes out worse.
I'm not an accelerationist. I'm just saying that it's already dead. There is no acceleration left to be done. It's already dead. Now what are we going to do?
I'm not sure that's true, though.
You don't think this system is dead?
No. I mean, it's still here.
You're living in the wrong place, brother. You're living in the wrong place. You don't. I mean, have you seen the homeless numbers in New York? Like,
Yeah,
this
it's
is
horrible. Yeah.
this is a failed state.
I'm saying all that stuff is horrible, but things are still,
It may not have
there.
made it up to a certain level in the class structure, but it's coming. And I'm tired of having to wait until it gets up there for it to count. It's dead here, buddy. We're dead down here. We are massively homeless in the inner city. We are massively being exterminated by cops. We are massively food insecure.
Yeah,
So I'm sorry if it didn't make it to ContraPoint's house yet, but we're fucked down here.
um, I fully acknowledge that. Yeah, that is really, really, really horrible. The I'm just really concerned that the system has a shit ton of flaws, but it still technically exists. It's still there. So
only in the most cynical, and not to say you're cynical, but I'm just saying in terms of who is propping this up right now, which I don't think you are. We're talking about like Governor Cuomo and shit. We're talking about people with real push in the system. Those people are puppeting a corpse at this point. Literally, it could be no more explicit than Joe Biden. They get their hand up a puppet's ass. He's dead. His eyes are bleeding on live television. It's over, buddy. That's Trump and Biden. They are that system. They are what's left. It's literally dead men.
all right, I got you.
You feel me?
I feel you.
I think that now that Bernie, who again I supported Bernie, I voted for him in the primaries. I wanted Bernie to win. Look, I'm like everybody else. I have a big screen TV and a microwave, and at the end of the day, I want to come home and watch Netflix. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Getting out in the street and doing the emotional stress of activism and shit like that. And I'm not just talking about like making phone calls for Bernie. I'm talking about the kind of activism that has to be done when things are this fucked up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Rent strikes, riots, and shit. That sucks. It sucks. It's not a picnic. It's not fun. It's not an adventure. It sucks, man. I was in the Fight for 15 thing. You know how we had to stand our asses outside in the cold, and it was exhausting and stressful, and we yell ourselves hoarse. Like it's not a picnic. It's really not. But
no.
it's all that's left at this point.
When you're doing things like rent strikes, when you're doing things like Fight for 15, what are you hoping to change if you want the system to go away?
Well, I mean, look at Fight for 15. What you're doing is pricking the skin, right? With something like that. So I would see the reformers as wanting to do. Here's my advice for reformers: stop congregating around figures and personalities, and start congregating around issues.
I don't think I would agree with.
What's that?
I would definitely agree with that. I think we put far too much emphasis on single figures.
Yeah, the second that your movement starts to accumulate, even look like D-Ray during Occupy Wall Street, once you start to accumulate figures, you accumulate people that can be bought off by the existing order. And then those people tamp down your momentum. Here's how a big coalition can be built in our current circumstance. You are mobilizing existing grievance. You don't need heroes for that. All you need is to raise awareness, and one of my specialties, which is spread agitation. You need to really, really rile people up. You really need to remind people how fucked up things are. You need to let them know that it's time to tear the whole thing down. And maybe they won't tear the whole thing down, but at least they'll be pissed off enough that they go out there and go, no.
Yeah,
people are starting to say.
All right, here's my biggest problem, and one, I agree with that, but a lot of those people who are really angry and want to tear things down, are really mad at the economy, want to kill people like you and me. Like with the tearing the whole things down, they want to replace it with something completely different. So just agitating people, just pointing out that the system is terrible. That can work. That's great, but if people can still be really, really angry at the system and still not be any sort of cohesive group whatsoever. So you
have to agitate them about. To me, communism is about agitating people to get what they are owed from the social contract. So I'm talking about a specific kind of agitation. That's why I did Fight for 15. Specific agitation. What does this system owe you? Just like fascists agitate for culture.
Mm-hmm.
They don't agitate predominantly for money. They don't, because again, they're good. Their constituencies are usually pretty well off. They agitate for the system owes you social privilege.
Mm-hmm.
What we need to do now more than ever. Again, I came here number one because I felt bad that I've been, uncharitable, and very kind of aggressive with you and a couple of other people that are friends of yours, Oreo, Chud Logic, a couple people. I alienated people that I had, we were in a group together and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I ended up being so mad and so consumed with this sense that a movement was being taken away or a movement was being given to people that I felt were dangerous and stuff, that I became counterproductive. And I became somebody that just literally was biting to bite. So now that everything's kind of cooled down, I wanted to sort of do a little bit of reconciliation and maybe a little bit of redemption to sort of impart some kind of constructive input for people that are interested in doing this going forward. Is to kind of give you guys warnings of moral hazard, to give you a guys in a broad sense, to give people a sense of moral hazard, to give people a little bit of wisdom from having been around in this, and to give a little bit of a reminder to try to walk too far from the bottom, because people get smaller as you walk away from them. You know what I'm saying? Until you can't see them. So just remember these left wing movements. Even though the probably the most vocal members are like Chapo types, the people, the plebs, are people like you and me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm a pleb no matter what, right?
Well, yeah, you and me,
lenses.
you and me are effectively in the same. What do you make less than 50 grand a year, right?
Yes.
So I mean, we're effective. Anybody below 50 grand is effectively. This country is split into really weird numbers. Like most people make less than 50 grand. Like 2/3 of people make less than 50 grand.
And 50 grand is tough to say like how much that is depending on where you are. Like if you're in Eastern Kentucky, that's a fortune. If you're in California, you're sleeping on the streets, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got family in Florida. That I have a relative that was calling me the other day. She was like, "Oh, I got 33 grand." I said, 33 grand to do your job? You have a college education and stuff. She said, "Well, that's good down here." And I was like, completely.
Florida, yeah.
yeah, because I make more than that. And like, how do I put this? In New York City, in the ghetto, 65 grand isn't that much money.
Yeah, I believe it.
That's how bad it is over here. If you don't get housing, which is, we used to have people used to get by in the inner city because of public housing,
mm-hmm.
but a combination of gentrification and just kind of a really, really out of control homeless epidemic, because I get why they expedite those people into housing, has left like working class poor people really, really on our ass when it comes to housing and rent. Like I live with 2 other people. My boyfriend lives with 1, 2, 3, 4 other people. And he's in a 1-bedroom, I'm in a 2-bedroom. And we both have income and we just cannot pay a 1-bedroom apartment. That's nuts.
Yeah, I fully understand. Yeah, I believe that wholeheartedly. Why don't you just move? Why don't you? I just solved it for you. Just move.
I had a spat with Lindsay Ellis, I think 2 months ago in public. And her justification to me was that where she lives, 6 figures is not a lot of money. And I don't know what to say to that. I don't know. I don't know, dude. I don't live on the West Coast, but her case to me was like 6 figures is not a lot of money, and I was like,
I have heard stories about like in depending on where you live, 6 figures might actually just barely cover rent, just because of
it's very confounding to me, and you need to remember that New York is a class apartheid state.
Yeah.
So my psychology is very influenced by the fact like there are 2 or 3 streets between uptown and downtown that you can cross. And it's the difference between like an abandoned burned building and like a fucking mansion or a couple of blocks away from each other. And you know, I'm so deep in despair right now because we can literally. You ever see the movie Dunkirk?
I have not.
The Nolan film Dunkirk has a short speech where a guy talks about I can see home because Dunkirk was that close. They were under siege from the German army, and they could see home, but they were stranded on an island. And that's what it means to live in the ghetto. Is you stand here and you see civilization, and you go, "What the fuck?
Yeah, there's
What
that.
happened? Why is this happening to us? Why are they?" I was working for the county medical examiner the other day, and I was just standing there watching them churn the body bags out, and I was so upset I had to go to the bathroom and cry. That's what it feels like out here. Is like they just don't give a fuck about us. They just leave us here to die.
So it's not.
And then people turn to me and go, "Dude, just be moderate." I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah, so it's an ad to say it's not just that you grew up poor, surrounded by poverty. It's that you grew up poor, surrounded by poverty, and you can see how the other half lives, and
Correct.
that makes you feel more poor because now you know what you don't have. That you know how other people live and what they take for granted. That can kind of like that's almost worse. That is worse than if you were just poor, or if you because poor is relative. You don't know if you're poor. You don't know if you're poor
right.
unless you see.
So let's say you live in the country, because I got family that lives in the country, right in Georgia.
Yeah, that's where I live.
They don't. They do you? I'm not gonna ask what part. I got people in Marietta. You know where Marietta is?
No, I didn't. Georgia. I lived in Eastern Kentucky, and it's a complicated living situation right now. But for all intents and purposes, I did grow up in the poorest part of Eastern Kentucky.
Okay, so I have people in Marietta, in Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a house, and they're kind of in the middle of nowhere, but they've never been to Atlanta.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
They never had to go to Atlanta. I'm not saying they have it better than us, but I'm just talking about psychology.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about that people in the inner city, we go and we work as slaves to these people. And then they turn around and tell us that we're fucking them up. The DSA turns to us and goes, "You people are fucking this up." They turn around to black people that voted for Biden and they tut on the tisk tisk. And I'm like, look, man, like there's a lot of complicated reason that Biden got the black vote, and it has nothing to do with some kind of moral bankruptcy. It has to do with misinformation and disinformation and stuff like that. There's so many complex class-related issues for people to just turn around and go, "You guys fucked this up." It's like,
okay,
I don't know. But again, anyway, so here is that connection to that thing. This thing of being right there and seeing what a functional society is like. You ever hear something called the Fresh Air Fund?
Fresh Air Fund, no? What's that?
In the inner cities of America, there's something called the Fresh Air Fund, where they give you, the poor kid, an opportunity to go visit the country and go stay with like very financially secure people who are predominantly white.
Hold on one second. Address something. Hey, Trev Kin, this is some privileged take. The poor don't know they're poor. Dude, like, poor is a relative term. Like, you don't know what you don't have unless you see other things. Like, I grew up poor. Do not try to pull that shit on me. And what I'm saying there is, like, if you see people living in lavish lifestyles, yeah, that fucking sucks way more than if you didn't know that there was so much stuff that you had, that you didn't know there was so much stuff that you were denied. So, calm down, buddy. Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay, so if you're a little town, let me answer to it. So if your little town is a little town, you guys are poor, but you all are poor together,
mm-hmm.
right? But y'all could get everything you need,
mm-hmm.
right? Like you get everything you need from your town. You don't got to go to the city. You don't got to be exposed to this other stuff. Maybe you have a little bit of blissful ignorance, and at least y'all are like self-sufficient.
Right.
Up here, we have food deserts. We have all kinds of reasons that we literally, if we can't get to the city, right, from the outer edges, we can't get food. Like we literally cannot get anything if we don't cross over. So the Fresh Air Fund thing was an intense culture shock, because they sent me somewhere for 2 or 3 weeks, and I saw how bourgeoisie people live. And when I came back, it was like somebody had sent me to fucking where does Thor live? Asgard.
Yeah.
I felt like a human that went to Asgard and then came back and was talking about magical things. All these people didn't yell at each other, and They didn't kick the shit out of each other's kids, and they weren't drug addicts or whatever. And who knows what the secrets are? But to go there and to come back, that's a fucking red pill. That's a consciousness pill.
Yeah, I had a
That's a
summer
class consciousness.
I had a summer job at a country club where like some very famous names went. Famous in the city that I lived in, and it was it was mind blowing, just like the way those people lived and like what they expected as normal. So yeah, being exposed to that certainly changes you, and it makes you more aware of kind of like your own broader place in society, which is kind of
this guy made a point about the segregation. I'm not proposing a segregation of the poor or oppression Olympics. What I'm proposing is that if we don't wrap around personalities and we don't wrap around pandering people's bigotries or softening to expand coalitions, you know what expands coalitions?
I'm sorry, what?
Broad. You know what expands coalitions?
Expands coalition? What?
Broad economic progress.
There you go. Yeah, I agree with that. In fact, regarding this whole thing, I think I can sum up your points in the way that I agree with, but I also would like to add just a question at the end. So, what you're concerned about, what gatekeeping is, and accusations of you're doing purity testing and all this gatekeeping. You're concerned that by trying to appeal to a lot of these people, you don't just appeal to those people; they also appeal to you because you want them to come into your movement, and because of that, you might try to appeal to them by becoming more like them, and that necessarily can mean softening some of the harder edges that you don't agree with. Like, well, okay, I don't like it that you use the R slur, but maybe I'm not going to be as vocal about it, or like let's not like here's a super moderate or even moderately conservative candidate. I guess they're okay, and I'm not going to criticize them as much, or something along those lines. That is really overly simplistic. But you're concerned that by bringing out in some people, that's in an effort to appeal to them. By appealing to somebody, you necessarily have to make concessions, and you're concerned about that.
It represents a moral hazard.
It represents a moral hazard.
That's what I'm saying. It represents a moral hazard. Be careful what you do with that stuff. Just what I'm saying is appeal to them with something that doesn't have collateral damage. Letting the R slur go is much more harmful than going, I don't agree with that, but let's focus on minimum wage going up. Let's focus on health insurance. Let's focus on this and that. Bring them to you with economics. Don't come to them on identity.
Yeah. No, I gotcha. And I really agree with not elevating individuals up to a pedestal, because one, because that's harmful in a lot of ways, because it's kind of harmful for the individual being put up on that pedestal, right? Like we can joke about it all we want, but having like that is pretty stressful when that many people.
Again, I don't want to negate the harm that has been done to ContraPoints by the position she's in, not by there's a frame that she's being just attacked by plebs. What's happening to ContraPoints is being done to her by the position that she's been put in by the existing system. It was when they pulled her into the mainstream that they started to chew on her. You know what I mean? Yeah. And make it so that if she wants to get the interviews, if she wants to get the money, she has to make concessions within her community that stoke tension that she has to pay for emotionally.
I think my biggest problem in that whole, I guess we'll talk specifically about ContraPoints, that whole scandal, because I think it can get into broader topics. My concern was I like the conversation we're having now, where there's a lot of nuance and there's gray areas and there's no universal condemnations of too much here. But people really flipped on ContraPoints and to turn her into like the worst person ever. And I see that a lot on, I don't know what word to describe it that isn't woke school. It's just a word coming to mind. But there are a lot of people who push a rhetoric that if you do one thing imperfectly, that suddenly ruins your entire character, and you go from there is no you're either okay or you're garbage, and there's no nuance.
I think that we need to demarcate her trans critics, because I don't have any room to question the validity of their arguments. That's an intra-community thing. Okay, so if she's having a disagreement within the community and they're having an extreme reaction, I'm not going to put my foot in there, because that's an intra-community thing. It's just like if a black creator was having a static situation about blackness with the black audience, I'm not going to step in there and go, well, my opinion on it is that's I'm going to separate that from the other part of it, which is like people calling her a class traitor or people calling her a Eceleb sellout or something like that.
Gotcha.
I think that those critiques, I think that the people issuing the critiques and the people receiving the critiques, it's time for us to sober up and go, this is a critique of capitalism, not ContraPoints. This is a critique of class, not ContraPoints. I think that would make ContraPoints feel better and it would make us feel better. The trans issues are separate from that. But as far as class and money and power, we need to start broad. We need to start, again, my side needs to start thinking beyond idols too. We need to start thinking beyond individual malefactors, and we need to start hitting at the fucking whole dynamic is wrong. And anyone that we put up there, no one will be pure enough because the dynamic is inherently corrupt.
Okay. You know, I'm not sure I disagree with that. I'm glad that, I'm glad that you are definitely seeking for reconciliation towards a greater like threat here, like because you know you're not a class traitor, because that's a very binary distinction. You're not a like I don't know what the other word you use, class traitor, something else. But
we need to transcend from micro to macro on both sides. We need to go beyond the individuals, and we need to go beyond personalities. We need to literally like get beyond woke scolds, and meaning like we need to get away from these little like this is the problem. The only problem that should come out of our mouth is like class, which includes race, which includes gender, or capital. Those are the only things that leftists needs to be concerned about. This whole thing of like, oh, you're too puritanical or something like that, unless it involves homophobia or something. The broad thing is like, what's our big problem that unites us? Our big problem is that our money's fucked up. And that's whose fault is that? That's capitalism's fault.
Okay.
You feel me?
Yeah, I feel it. I think you're making your points very very well. Yeah, and you're certainly approaching this in a way that I think is much healthier than some things that I've seen in the past. Not just from you, but from like, you know, the discourse, especially like here recently. The discourse is pretty terrible.
We needed time. I think that part of this is we needed time to see where things were going. Bernie had just embarked on his campaign, and I know that his supporters were nervous and they felt under siege, and they felt like the neoliberals, because neoliberals are identity politics adjacent. Even though we can have I would love to have a whole other conversation about how neoliberal identity politics or non-identity politics are just horseshit. I understand why, and I understand why we can only have this conversation now, and why we can only have this conversation like this, because having this conversation on Twitter is shit.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Oh, definitely.
So, you know, I'm thankful for getting this opportunity, because you didn't have to, because I you know, was very, very coarse with people that were in your position or were espousing your sense of reform. You know, I at least was able to now, again, I haven't moderated myself, but I was able to personally find a sense of centeredness so I could give you something better than just fuck you. You know, like that's not helping you. That's not helping me. What I needed to do as an older creator, as a more experienced creator, is to go, dude, this is something positive I want to give you, man. Like, I don't want to fuck you up. I want to make sure that you're on a good road, you know?
Oh, yeah. And I think it would be extremely hypocritical of me if I just wrote you off as, oh, he's just again, I'm not a loss for words. He's just a woke scold, like, radical person. You can't change. He's just all bad. I think it would be extremely hypocritical of me to criticize people for calling people bad, and then to call those people bad themselves, right? So,
yeah, I mean, it puts us on a trajectory. It puts us on a trajectory to get preoccupied. It puts.
If you're mad at individual people, you're not mad at overall systems, right?
Correct. So your critique of people needs to be about how they are exemplars, not malefactors. Meaning, this is a warning. Be careful with this, because this can happen to you, and this is not just about this person being morally failing. This is a person who is being consumed by a structure and an order, being corrupted by an order. So if you don't change it, then it won't matter who you send. They'll eat that one too.
I got you. Yeah, I think you've made your points very, very well regarding this, and I definitely appreciate you feeling comfortable talking to me. And
sure, I mean, it was a process. I mean, I was, when you went away for a little bit, I really felt so awful, and I felt like I had done, I had endured bullying that had driven me into very dark places, and I had become so aggressive that I had contributed to people having these very strong emotional reactions that it really, really just made me feel absolutely um, devastated, especially because you're newer in the movement, and especially because you're not some big shot that I'm taking some kind of a big swing at. You're somebody who's just coming into it, and as someone, again, I don't have the numbers, but I do have insight that I could have given you instead of going like, "Fuck you, shut up, you haven't been around, kid," like stuff like that. It just kind of like I took that moment to like sober. I even talked to my therapist, like, "Oh my god, I really hope that I did not do to another person what was done to me. Like how shitty that would be."
I appreciate it. For what it's worth, like that. Don't worry about any of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you are familiar enough with mental health to know that the thing that might set you off is just like there's nothing to do with the build up to it, right? It's never
Right,
it's never
right.
just over the latest thing.
Correct. It is a metastasis, right? Like it's a byproduct of all the other things. I don't want to be the straw in someone else's life. If I conduct myself properly, I won't be the one that drives somebody to a very sort of vulnerable state like that.
I know, and I certainly do appreciate it, and I just hope discourse turns into being cognizant of that everywhere. Like, I do think there's a problem with a lot of people being overly dehumanizing towards other people, and I think that's a position I've made kind of clear on my end. So be nice is genuinely what my position is. I know that doesn't seem like it solves much, but I do think that giving people a certain extent of the benefit of the doubt is never a bad thing, and encourage conversations like this one. Of course, not everybody can hop on a Hangouts call for an hour every time they have a disagreement, but just having that mindset of being open, right?
Here's the thing. Here's what I've learned from having been on alt right media, right? When I was an antagonist.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, Nazis, they're not going to listen to you.
Right.
They're not going to listen. Their audience is going to listen to you. They're not being driven by anything. Okay, but intra-community, right? Because you and me, we do share a community of left-wing social media discussion. We do share that community.
Mm-hmm.
If there are these groups within communities that are having antagonism, this is better. At least people from within those groups to have these conversations, so that at least some people within the group can go, you know what? We couldn't have this conversation on Twitter, but at least I heard someone from my side. I heard someone from the other constituency, and I can at least take a second to think about it. I think that that's healthy.
Oh, certainly, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd love to have another discussion going forward. Just as things go on, just have these little refresh sessions so that everybody can take a second and be like, this is how I feel. This is what's going on out there on the battlefield. This is what's going on in terms of, the inter-community politics. The only thing that I would say in terms of the being nice thing, for me, niceness is reserved for people that are at a certain level. So if it's applying to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't question being nice. If you step in on behalf of someone powerful, it is a reactionary component of my brain to freak out. Because now I'm confused, because there's you, but you're representing somebody powerful when you take up for them. And I would just say be careful, because the implication, the outcome can be something neither one of us want, which is that I take out my anger against that more powerful person on you, who don't actually participate in that person's power.
Yeah, I think it's just it would be good to be cognizant of why someone might be sticking up for someone powerful. Because a lot of the time, since we are selfish, I don't think no one's consciously like, well, they're the defender of the system, and I want to keep the system in place, so I'm going to defend them to defend the system. A lot of times, it's a lot more simple than that. In that there are traits in that person that I see in myself and identify with, and I feel like when you're attacking them for something, you're attacking me.
Correct.
And so I feel the need to step in to defend this powerful person because I'm subconsciously defending a part of myself that I feel like you're unfairly maligning.
Right. Which is, again, I'm thankful for you to explain that because I had a vague sense of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this. The benefit of the doubt is not something that everyone can afford.
No, I understand.
That's the problem. And as you go more marginalized, whether it's economically or in terms of identity, because there's a lot of stigma around orientation and gender, you need to remember that if those people seem very, very harsh, it's because the benefit of the doubt is not on the menu, because we're talking about starving tomorrow. We're talking about being beaten to death for being transgender tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So just give it that again. What do I think my side should do is to think about whether or not the people that are defending the powerful are actually participating in that power. And if they're not participating in that power, then we should go around the person. You know what I mean? Like, you feel what I'm saying? Like, there's no purpose in standing here bopping you on the head for defending ContraPoints. Like, if you were ContraPoints and her tier of power. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's the advice that I would give to my side. As far as your side, I would just say, just remember that niceness is a class-related thing, and politeness is a class-related thing, because those things involve patience. And patience is not always afforded to people who are in these extremely risky day-to-day.
You could also certainly make the argument that civility is a tool of the oppressor. Seems like I'm LARPing. I'm trying to figure out a better way to say it. Like, civility is by definition maintaining what's going on right now. Like, I don't want to upset the mood in any direction. So by nature, if you focus on civility, make it something that you strive to take towards, it could help. It could mean that you're excluding things.
And it can be taken to an absurd extreme, which is to say, you are to Democrats what we are to you. You are radical to them. You are extreme to them. You are rude by their standards. Just remember that, again, the further you move right, the more, and there are people on my left. There are people that are always going to be less moderate than me, but 9 times out of 10, they are more vulnerable. They're homeless, they're incarcerated, stuff like that. So it's just kind of like, all we need to do is try to talk to each other more often like this in formats that are not, the thing with Twitter is a very, I call Twitter a gunshot format.
Mm-hmm.
It's pitch and volley. It's the human mind. You see, like, the way that the tweets are structured in a conversation.
Yeah.
This thing of topping each other on the tree and stuff like that. These are very primal human instincts. These are dynamics that we remember from nature about power and domination and subversion and victory and shit like that. So when we're on Twitter, we should make sure that if we're going to use that, let me tell you, I've used that format for some very bad people and have no problem with the warlike format of Twitter when I need it. But we need to make sure that is just like anything else. If you're talking about, like, all right, you threw a fucking riot, what did you throw a riot for? Like, there are good reasons to throw a riot and there are bad reasons to throw a riot. It's not the riot that's the problem, it's the justification.
Right.
So, the way that I treated you is the way that I treat the worst of the worst, the way that I treat people who come in and defend Ethan Ralph or Richard Spencer or something. You understand?
Yeah.
I had to learn from that experience to go, wait, is Jangles the person that am I gonna just use the same war tactic on Jangles that I use on, like, Race Mixer 8841? It's just not the right. When you had that moment where, like, it was too much for you, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? This is a person with empathy, and this is a functional person. This is not like a Nazi shiv. This is somebody that this is not going to, look, arguably dealing with Nazis, these are very different people from you and I. So when I treat them in that way, they're not going to turn to me and sort of, it's not catastrophic for them because they've already, that's what it is. You didn't unperson me, right? So when I express myself in this very destructive way, it hurts. if you had unpersoned me into woke scold, if you had unpersoned me the way that Nazis unpersoned me in terms of my homosexuality, in terms of my health, it won't bother them because I'm not a person anyway. And I didn't understand that. I just kind of got lost in the thing of like, I'm mad and I'm gonna fight. And this, I actually ended up dehumanizing you because I was just like, he's one of those. Fuck him. And my advice to my own people in my own constituency is just think, like, is this person, is what they're doing to you dehumanizing you? Because then you can scorch the earth. I have no problem with that. But you need to think about whether you guys are having a argument about something or you're having an argument about self and about personhood.
Man, I gotta say, I agree with that a lot. I think you kind of put the nail on the head. In fact, you used a word that I'm definitely going to steal from you. I mean, I've heard it before, but I'm definitely going to use it more because it fits better. That unpersoning. So I've used othering in the past, but I think unperson works a lot better. And I think it can certainly happen in a ton of different ways. Yeah, definitely.
Insularity is the number one way. Let's be honest. Insularity, blocking each other, not talking to each other, hyper, not partisanship. What am I trying to say?
Tribalism, maybe?
Give me the big word. What's the big word? Yes. Something like tribalism where we literally just don't ever, and again, you can check my Twitter. Like there are people that I talk to that are not reputable necessarily, but I talk to them so that they know that they talk to somebody like me. I don't endorse them. I don't platform them. I don't do any of that stuff. But there are a handful of anti-SJWs that I talk to so that they can go back to the community and go, I talked to one of them. They're not monsters. They're people. Right. And maybe that'll do something. And I talk to you so that you go back to the community and go, not all people on that side of the equation of this far end of the left are very, again, when I go back to my group, people go, blah, blah, blah. And I go, well, you know what I mean? Like I kept deliberately, I kept in contact with a significant number of people who were in the Bernie World thing that I had spats with. Dave Franco, Logic Guy. Yep. Does Logic Guy still go by Logic Guy?
Yeah.
Me and Logic Guy have been friends for a long time, and we had a spat like this, and I had to do the healing, and I had to do the talking and stuff like that. But there's other people that don't seem to want to road back with me. I can't blame them because, again, like we had that big, me and Ranting Femme, again, knew each other for years, and it ended in a real fucking complete nuclear holocaust. But I'll talk to anybody, man. I'll talk to anybody that wants to at least acknowledge my basic humanity and kind of be like, you're not just an adversary, you're a person too. And marginalized people are very sensitive to that kind of stuff because we do get challenges to our humanity every single day for different stupid ass reasons. You're not a person because you're gay. You're not a person because you're sick. You're not a person because you're disabled. You're not a person because, and again, so when we see our issues discarded, and not by you, but I'm saying further up the chain.
I understand.
When and not even Chapo's not even, here's a secret. Chapo's not even the extreme end of that. It's the people in the constellation that do wild shit like fat shaming and homophobia and stuff like that. Sometimes they build against us behind a sense of humor, and sometimes they don't. But when you are used to that shit being meaningful, it doesn't matter whether the person laughs at the end. You're like, oh, here we go. The personal allegiance coming.
Yeah, I think I understand where you're coming from a lot better than I would have previously. And I'm very thankful and impressed that you have obviously put in a ton of work. Not necessarily to. You're not going back on your convictions. You're strengthening them, and you're.
Yes.
Yeah. So I appreciate the work you put in.
Failed my convictions. That's what brought me here. Was not moderation, which was to go. I actually fucked up based on what I had put out as my convictions. Which the number one thing is not to bully people. To not bully people that are vulnerable. To not bully people that haven't been in this space as long as I have. To be a gatekeeper and to be a bully are different things. I think that people conflate those two things when they don't like when they're being gate kept. But like I'm saying it right now, like just being an asshole is not gatekeeping. Gatekeeping is a constructive thing where you, for example, there's a path for Holiday to get in. There's a path for Sue Head to get in because Dusty came in that path. Creationist Cat came in that path. It can be done, but these two people have not asserted that they want to do what those individuals have done. Anybody can come in, but you got to work.
I got you. And I think that you already have a really good way of going forward. Let's say that's like I'm sure that you want to make an effort to say that you're not unpersoning Shu, you're not unpersoning Jeff Holiday. These are people who who are entitled to the same like basic human rights as everyone else.
Come, the gate will be opened. You just need to. Again, it was done for Dusty. It took time and work. It was done for Creationist Cat. It took time and work. It's just going to take time and work. Don't criticize the gate. Get the key. Don't criticize the gate. Get the key, because other people have gotten the key. It's happened before. We've had NTSJWs come over. If the community goes, you can't be an anti-feminist and a leftist at the same time, that's a fair concern, because feminism is not just about women's rights. Feminism is a broad justice category. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You do not see Creationist Cat make anti-feminist content. You do not see Cult of Dusty make anti-feminist content. They could make more money that way, but they made the sacrifice. What we're asking is for you to go, I'm sacrificing to get in. I'm not just walking in and saying, I'm sorry. If your spouse cheats on you, it's not enough for them to say sorry. They need to not fuck outside of the marriage again.
Yeah. I think where we could still have a little bit of disagreement is on, like, it's really hard to say what a community decides, though, right? Oftentimes they're like just citizens of the community, or they're like, I mean, one of the hardest parts we're having now is that who is quote unquote allowed in the left. I mean, there's no arbitrator of that. It's just a group of people, each with individual opinions, and so it's tough to say.
Sure, correct. But what I'm saying is, getting into a community doesn't happen instantaneously.
No, of course.
Dusty was TJ's right-hand guy. How'd he get in? He slowly rehabilitated himself, and people warmed up to him, and maybe there are some people that will never accept him.
I gotcha. And no one, I think it's important to be cognizant of like both extreme ends of that spectrum by saying that, I'm sorry, have you cut out?
I'm sorry, my equipment misbehaved. Hold on. Okay, you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I think it's the best thing, at least in my opinion, going forward, is to realize that, yes, if you bring a previously controversial figure in, not everyone's going to accept them, and that's okay. And for the other people to say, well, hey, just because those people don't trust this new person, doesn't give you the right to kick them out either. Like, if you truly believe in bringing people together, like, it's kind of hypocritical to say, well, if you don't think we should bring people together, like, we'll kick you out, or something along those lines. I feel like I'm getting dangerously close to the paradox of tolerance here.
Okay, right, correct. Issue. Shu has victims that are still on the left in these circles. Jeff has victims that are still on the left. They have not made amends. They have not pulled down content. They have not made any kind of contrition. If they don't do that, they are going to get repelled. I'm just telling you what the constructive path forward for those kind of people are. If you don't already have blood in the water, it's going to be much easier to transition. But if you spend years bullying and terrorizing a community, then you ask them to come inside, they're not going to trust you.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah. I think it's unreasonable to expect.
These were proud cyberbullies. These people identified as cyberbullying bullies. They championed cyberbullying. So they need to now do the opposite of that to prove, and again, not just say it, they have to do something. Pull down content, make apologies, make some kind of effort into fucking TJ. If you told me that I would live long enough for TJ to do the small amount of concession and contrition that he did, I would have told you it's impossible.
Yeah, but he ended up, from what I heard, he did pretty okay there. Or at least he made the small concessions he did, yeah.
He hasn't quite been redeemed yet, but I will say that I was surprised that he had that level of insight. And I think that could be the seed of something, but he's going to have to do what you do, which is not just to plant the seed. Got to put the water. You got to keep the soil. He's going to have to work. The same thing with Holiday. Holiday is not the worst of those people. Okay? But he has a seed, put it in the ground, put some water on it, give it some sunlight. That's all I'm saying. Same thing with you. Got the seed, you have a desire, and you've had a change of heart. Fine, that's a seed. Put it in the ground, put some water on it, and shine some sunlight on it, and it'll turn into a plant. Maybe it's a little plant, but it's a plant.
Yeah, but and it's also important, and part of why what I'm doing here is just I'm taking the opposite view just to kind of see, to further the conversation. But
Sure.
yeah, but from seeing things from their perspective, I'm trying to do that from their perspective. Like if you see a community that you kind of want to be a part of, but you have to do so much like who are extremely resistant to you, it's kind of hard to justify doing the work to yourself and a certain point that will never like you anyway, right? And
You're
you have
not
to be
doing
really
the work
convicted.
for. Hold on. You're not doing the work for me. You're doing the work for yourself.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like it would take an extreme, like these are my actual convictions, and so
Correct. It's a test, right? It's a test of, are you doing this to get in, or are you doing this for yourself?
yeah,
The key is a symbol. It's not just an object. It is a symbol of personal growth and commitment. So that's all I'm saying is, like, don't do it for me. Don't do it for our approval. Because again, Jeff comes out several times with that. Like, I don't do this. I'm not doing this for anybody else. Fine. Do it for yourself.
I gotcha.
You know what
No,
I mean?
yeah, and I agree with that.
He doesn't need my permission, but I'm justified to bang heads with him when he literally still has content up that personally humiliates and vilifies me. And Riley Dennis has that right, and Milo has that right. Milo from, I can't remember the last names right now. You know what I'm talking about?
Milo Yiannopoulos?
Milo Stewart.
Stewart.
Milo Stewart.
The opposite Milo.
Transgender
The other
YouTuber.
Milo. Sorry.
Correct. The good Milo, the angel Milo, not the devil. The angel Milo has the right to say, this guy is not ready, because he still has it up. And people who've taken it from Shu can look at her stuff and be like, she has 10 fuck feminist videos. She could probably pull those down as a symbol of, if you want to end a war, you got to do something. You can't just say, well, the war's over, I'm going home. You got to actually sit down at Appomattox, and they give you a little something, you give them a little something, and then the war's over.
I gotcha.
That's all. And you could say, again, you're entitled to be like, bro, this is too much. But like, literally, what's being offered is nothing. What's being offered is words of like, oh, I said I'm sorry. Well, you got to do something.
I think my overall opinion on all of this stuff is that I don't think I've expressed very well during our conversation is that it's okay to not hate someone who's done bad things. It's okay to kind of separate, well, these are the actions that they've had, but they've also done some good things, and it's worth pointing out the good things while still recognizing the bad things, and not to lump people into these are the YouTubers or influencers or content creators who start bad, and if you like them, you like every part about them. I think it can be tough to do, because sometimes you do have to kind of make judgments. We all do, but I think it's important to allow people to have disagreements without wholly writing them up as bad. Because we very rarely tend to wholly write up people as good because they've done one good thing, but we are very quick to paint someone as bad because they've done one bad thing.
What was the bad thing? Was it rape? Was like there's
oh, of course, yeah,
of
course, oh yeah, yeah, of course. But I'm talking like defend landlords. Like, yeah, you might extremely disagree with that, and it might go against a ton of your principles, but they're still not as far. They're still not the same as a fascist or something along those lines. Does that make sense?
No. But again, you need to remember that from the bottom, everybody looks. Does it matter to me if a neoliberal or a fascist is the reason that my life is fucked up? No. Like, it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that my life is fucked up by that person. Obama did it. Biden does it. Trump does it. Doesn't matter to me. Fuck. Why do you think people are, oh, well, fuck Biden. Fuck Biden. Fuck Obama. Fuck all those people. Doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
The only reason that I supported Bernie was that I could say, Bernie's gonna, raise the minimum wage. Bernie's gonna at least fight for clean water, clean air, free education, free mental health care, all those things. I could actually say, okay, maybe Bernie is not a fucking anarcho-communist, but Bernie is coming to the table and saying, I'm offering you something, not words, not sentiment. I'm offering you something. All I want from anyone. is for them to go, this is what's being offered. This is manifest expression of concern. That's it.
Yeah,
Manifest expression of concern.
you can also certainly put yourself in the shoes of someone who is one of those, like a neoliberal, who is going to look at this hypothetical person on the far left who's telling them that, hey, you're the exact same thing as a fascist. Look at them and kind of make the determination that, oh, this person has no idea what they're talking about. I shouldn't listen to them, right?
All right. So again, what's complicated here is the question of one is a question of who someone is, and one is a question of what they do and what the outcome is.
Yeah.
So maybe you know, a neoliberal Clinton or whatever is not the same as Hitler. Okay.
Right.
But to the people in Iraq, he is.
Yeah. And
the hundreds of thousands of people who died. You understand?
Yeah, of course.
So it's a question of does it have anything to do with Bill Clinton being evil? I don't know. But the thing is that I also don't give a shit. It doesn't matter to me because good intentions. You got to remember when you get to the very bottom of society, good intentions don't mean shit when you don't have food, shelter, medicine. You know, it can be a balm for some people. It's not nothing, but it's not something, and that's the problem. Like it is how do I put this? It is not for these very extreme times like this. Maybe in a more stable economy, you can have an Obama. Maybe in a more stable economy, you can have this Democrat thing of, oh, I feel your pain. Not now. Not when the world is falling down or people are going to turn around. You know, I care. I don't give a shit. What are you going to do? Is what the question is in times like this. Everything's contextual. Everything's temporal. Everything is based upon what is happening right now.
I agree, but it's also hard for a lot of people to think that globally, or to have a detailed conception of like global politics. Like I think if you ask the average person in the United States, well, what's life like in Yemen? No one's going to have any sort of clue beyond a vague notion of probably bad. So
sure, yeah. But look. Here's what you.
I'm not defending like and therefore they get to do what they want and don't have to learn about the consequences. I'm just saying that when you're like talking to other people, like, you know, when you're on Twitter and stuff, you are talking to other people. Oftentimes when you make accusations that could be completely true, like by doing this, you're contributing to a system that oppresses these people. It's extremely possible to do that in a way that makes it, you're doing this and you're reading into their intentions. You're saying you're doing this because you don't care about poor people. You're doing this because you're a bad person.
That's not here's my problem. My problem is not conservative douchebags, right? Like those people, you know, my expectation is to go through those people, so to speak. You understand? Like I know that freedom involves going through Charlie Kirk's body, not reasoning with him, but literally making it impossible for him to have power. Correct?
Could be. Yeah.
There's no, you understand? But to someone who is like, you know, I care. Okay. But that's incomplete. I'm not saying it's nothing, but I'm saying that it's incomplete. You don't get credit until you pull the person who's drowning out of the water. You don't stand on the edge of a boat, see somebody drowning, and go, oh man, that sucks. I feel bad for you. You get the credit when your hand touches my hand, and at least you try to pull me out of the water.
I got you.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, of course. Of course, agree with that.
The neoliberal thing is incomplete. They will make gestures, and whether those things are genuine or not doesn't matter if they don't. Maybe this way, I would rather a cynical person express fake concern and take real action than the other way around. Like Cuomo has done things in New York cynically, like give free college and gay marriage and stuff. It's cynical politician shit. But
it was done, right?
More important that it was done, not why it was done.
Yeah, of course.
My opinion. I don't care if you're a homophobe. If you are, number one, not you know, metastasizing that philosophy in public, right? And like whatever, you don't like gay marriage, but you're going to make it legal. You don't like blah blah blah. You're going to make things happen, though. You're going to, you know, you think people should be responsible for college debt, but you're going to forgive the debt anyway. I don't give a fuck about your intentions. Do something. Do something is my point.
And I agree with that. I mean, we can never truly understand what's in someone's head, so their motivations will always, no matter how much they explain it, will always be truly foreign to us. and kind of the only thing that matters is outcomes. I mean, and
social...
of course, and that's tough to be very concrete, but in a general sense, that's kind of how it is. I mean, of course, like
okay, so
of course, words aren't meaningless, right? But you know what I mean.
Right, but look at sentiment, right? Sentiment is something you can get from your mom, and it's fine, right? Because she takes care of you and stuff. She does stuff too. That sentiment is connected to action. But when a stranger gives you sentiment, they don't participate in your life, and until they do something, the sentiment is hollow.
I got you.
Because y'all don't participate in each other's lives. The whole point of activism is for us to participate. The whole point of politics and social contract is so that we have a measure of participation in the lives of others.
Right, but you would also definitely acknowledge that your mother has far more responsibility in your life, far more weight in your life than a random person off the street, and therefore, like, what they have to do their quote-unquote fair share is far different, right?
Correct. The stranger on the street doesn't have to breastfeed you. That's not my point.
Yeah.
My point is that, for example, if you have an abusive parent who keeps telling you they love you, but they kick the shit out of you and they don't feed you, then you should probably discard that. Whether it's genuine or not doesn't matter. Because they're kicking the shit out of you and starving you.
I agree. Yeah, of course.
So that's the same thing in terms of the social contract. If someone is living in a mansion and they send you a video of them singing Imagine and you don't have food that week, then who cares if it's fake? It's not doing anything. It's not feeding you. You're starving. Make sure you have a just society first, then be nice. You know what I mean? Then be nice. When you can act, when the niceness is an expression of, we live in a society where I look out for you, you look out for me, and that's why we're nice to each other. You know what I mean? If you go to social democratic states, they are more harmonious. There is lower crime, not just because people are not deprived, but also because they have a broad sense of, I pay my taxes, and Chomsky talks about this. Pay my taxes, it takes care of the old lady down the street.
Yeah. I mean, to me, being nice is the goal of society. Like, if we are nice, we're kind of already there. But being
nice, because I have a whole list of people that I provide zero niceness for.
Well, that's the toughest part, right? I mean, that whole conversation on unpersoning. Like,
do you have people that you would dispense with niceties for?
Oh, of course, yeah, but it depends on, like, what niceties are you talking about.
Well, I'm talking about if you go face to face with one of the big brains of the alt-right, you're not going to be like, you're not going to like wait your turn to like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know why you don't do that with people like that? Because they don't have that in them. They have unpersoned themselves first. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm wary that I'm careful about doing that because it is really easy. Right? Like, once you, like, write someone off as this person is to be dunked on, to be talked past, to not put in the effort to change them, sometimes that is the correct answer, but that can also become it can easily come into, well, I have a couple of disagreements with this person, and it's just way easier to dump them off. So I'm just careful about doing that.
Okay, so that can be said about a Panera Bread mom who is a Hillary Clinton supporter, okay?
Yeah.
That cannot be said about someone like Mike Enoch or Mark Collette or one of those people like Spencer, because those people have divested themselves of humanity. That's what it means to be a Nazi.
No, of course, but we're intentionally describing extreme examples, right? Of course, like, those are pretty terrible people. I think it's very fair to say. But even in these extreme cases, like, I want healthcare for everybody.
Right. But I would not work with Mike Enoch on that.
Oh, of course not.
Because all he's doing it for is to get political capital that he can then use later for genocide.
Yeah, and I'm very, very aware of that. I think
I would work with. Let's put it this way: I would work with President Cuomo from the left for him to raise the federal minimum wage, and I would have no making not the expense of anyone. Where like I'm, you know what I'm saying? But if people were like, will you support this president? Hell yeah, he's raising the minimum wage. You got me, bro. He's passing universal college. You got me, bro. And it has nothing to do with liking him. It has everything to do with thinking about the needs of my community and my comrades like yourself.
Yeah.
I want you to have free healthcare. I want you to have free dentistry, free glasses. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. I think, and right there's where like we want a lot of the same things, and
Right.
yeah, there's a ton of overlap. Like there's a lot of these distinctions and a lot of these arbitrary drawing of lines of you're in my in group, you're in my out group, and things like that. And of course, we have to draw lines somewhere just to talk about different groups and talk about different ideas. But I think it's very very easy to get into a mentality where if you're not as perceived as fully within the in group, then you could be unpersoned pretty easily, especially over the internet, where.
But hold on. The predominance of real world lines like that are made by powerful people. That's the problem.
Yeah.
On the internet, it's the only place that, again, all this bitching about safe spaces, it's the only place where marginalized people can make our own line, because out in the world, the powerful do that.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah,
and again, all we have to do is talk. All we have to do is have these little things where it's like, all right, well, what's going on? And again, this is not the way that Sargon would talk to a Nazi and go, oh, you're very, very reasonable. It's just kind of like, it's not just a theater of conversation. It should be some kind of mutual empathy. It should be two people talking to each other and not like, I represent this, you represent that.
Right, yeah, because no one's a representative of their ideology, right? Like, we can only think for ourselves.
They are, but that involves unpersoning yourself. Sargon doesn't see himself as a human being anymore. Sargon sees himself as classical liberalism. People sort of wonder why people like that can be so monstrous, because they unperson themselves first.
Yeah.
What do you think egomania is? It's divesting yourself of humanity and creating yourself as some kind of a godlike figure.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. A lot of people do kind of.
ContraPoint as ContraPoint has become more powerful, she has become a character in the public sense. Because I don't know, I can't speak for private. I'm saying what has happened is that she's become a character. And I think that the establishment has enabled that character, and that can become incredibly disorienting.
I think it's a fair assumption to make, because I mean, to a certain extent, every single public figure is a character, right? Like, we only see what they put out in public, and we try to conceptualize an entire person based on the extremely limited parts that we see of them. So,
the hardest thing that I ever had to do was to constantly take inventory of how much of Bronx is a brand and how much of Bronx is a persona. Like, is it just my name, or is it like I have to perform who this is?
My opinion on that is
that all young creators, be careful, buddy. Yeah.
My opinion on that has always been, you're never who you're not. You're like, whatever face you put on, the reason you put on that face is because of your own morality. That's a roundabout way of saying, like, if you change your normal behaviors in a certain context, you're still not who you're not. Mm-hmm. Because your own morality has dictated to you that it is more important for me to act this certain way in this context. So you're still representing your true self. There's no such thing as being someone that you're not. If that makes any sense whatsoever.
I think that psychology can play tricks on you, and I think that you can be. I think it's natural for people to be contextual. I think you could be one person to your family. I think you could be one person at work, and I think that being a creator is a job. And I think that the work persona can sometimes invade into your personal world, or it can become a difficult. The mask can become too heavy.
Yeah, I mean they influence each other.
There's a lot of times where my therapist, for example, a lot of times was like, "Listen, you don't always have to be the one to pick a fight with the big shot." For example, you know what I'm saying? She was that's not a responsibility. You don't have to live up to your reputation every single fucking time and constantly be the one that's like banging on, the door of that I that I've moderated my content and private everything in the last few months, and that was from the therapist kind of saying, like, you need a break and you need to take it easy and not take every single fight onto yourself as you're the only person that's going to stand up, because there's other people that are going to do it and you could trust them
super
to do it.
Yeah.
No, it's not just you. I became high on my own persona. I became high on this, like, if I don't do this, no one else is going to do it. I had to take a check and kind of go, like, relax, bro. Like, there's other people that are going to push.
All right. I think it's getting a little bit late. I just looked at my camera.
Sure.
I just looked at my stream, and you can barely see me because the light's gone down. But what I thought we could do is maybe if there's any questions in chat that they'd like to ask either one of us, maybe
Sure.
answer one or two of those. Does that sound good?
Sure. No problem. Sounds good to me.
Okay, so let's just wait about 30 minutes for what I just said to actually go live. It should be that long.
Do you go by Jangles or?
Justin's fine. My real name's Justin.
Okay.
Or my real name that's I give out is Justin. Ah. We'll see.
My real name is out there somewhere on Kiwi Farms.
Oh no.
I'll let people work for it.
Let people work for it. Oh no. I don't know if I'm there yet. I hope not.
Be careful with all that stuff, buddy. Doxing is very, very prominent. I can't tell you how I felt the first time somebody posted a picture of my house on Kiwi Farms. It was
I
rough.
can imagine it wasn't the best time of your life.
They're very crafty. The trolls are very crafty. You'd be surprised how they get this information. Like, it's completely bonkers sort of IT spy stuff.
Oh yeah. Some people devote like their entire life to hating a person.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It is something that I was not prepared for. It was like, I'm like, so this is CIA level investigation for me, like little old me. You went through all this shit.
Well, yeah, like
You know?
being small isn't necessarily a shield because like in someone's mind, like, hey, I can't take down a huge person, but I can take down a small fry. I can ruin their life.
Right.
So it's almost like, well, they're an easy target, so I'm gonna do it even more.
Yeah. It's a very surreal experience when people are like pulling your high school photo and stuff. Where the fuck did you get this?
Like, can you burn that forever? Like, I don't. Like, post a picture of me sleeping in my bed tonight. That's fine. I look okay there. Don't put my high school photo up on the internet. I don't know.
I think what saved me is that I live in an apartment complex. So, like, when I saw the picture, I put a comment on Q Farms. I was like, good luck, find the apartment.
Like, which one?
You bang on every door, you'll find me.
All right. I haven't seen anything from the chat yet, but
Okay.
any like final thoughts, things you want to leave the people watching with,
Well, it's nice,
leave me with,
to
yeah.
talk with comrades. I haven't been on a left stream in a long time. I took time off. I've been on so many fucking white nationalist streams. I've been on so many reactionary streams.
I gotta imagine that.
And I was just,
yeah, dude. I needed a 2-month break after after I went on the kill stream. That was I'm still getting comments.
Who are you? I suggested you to Ethan.
Yeah,
he was asking
Vincent
me
James.
about. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, poor Vince. Poor Vince. You know, Vince is strange because Vince, you know, look, Mike Enoch knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
You feel me? Like, Mike Enoch is smart. He just doesn't give a shit. He's just punitive. Vince, I think, feels like this is a form of conservatism, and I guess we can get into lefty talk about whether it is or not.
Yeah.
But I think that Vince is very confused about where the line between being like a Bush conservative and being a Nazi are. He doesn't understand how far over that line he is.
Yeah, I think he gets it, actually, in all the research I did on him. I did a ton. But anyway,
Really?
yeah. I mean, that's kind of like neither here nor there. But
Sure.
someone did ask in the chat, like, do you still go on the kill stream?
I'm effectively retired from that, but I can't do that no more. I can't. I emotionally don't have the. I had one last spat with Red Ice TV once they were banned out, and that was kind of my mission accomplished for that stuff, because that was the nexus of the alt right on YouTube. That was where they cross promoted, and when that was done, I just kind of like, I put the phone down, I let out like a little tear, and I had a drink, and I was like, okay, that's done. When I'm going to relaunch my content later this year, and it's going to firstly be very focused on anti-capitalism with an undercurrent of anti-fascism this time, and it's going to try to at least be more in touch with my own community, and less doing propaganda of the deed. I've done that. I bled, and there is a very high emotional cost for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, you know what? I spent 3 years doing this. It's time to relax until they, if they get the level of foothold that they had on YouTube when I first started doing that, I'll come back. But right now, so many of them are on D Live or below or on BitChute that I'm not super preoccupied with it.
I gotcha. Okay, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
A question I got on here, like, one, someone's asking you if you'd like to be a guest on their podcast or stream, so I'll let you do it that
They
on
can
your own.
DM me. They can DM me.
So,
My
I just
at is
I just put Bronx's Twitter in the description,
yes,
so hopefully that updates. Someone asked me, what do you do if marginalized people are the ones objecting to the standards you have in regards to jokes or terminology? I mean, everybody's welcome to have disagreements with me and jokes and terminology. Like, of course, language is contextual. I'm always interested to hear like what words or phrases mean to other people. So I have an idea on especially on comedy, on what I believe to be the correct view of things, but part of that view is understanding that jokes are always contextual, and like it's you can't we can't label a joke funny because that's all, and therefore we can't really label it anything else. So what you might see as perfectly fine is perfectly fine to you, but you have to recognize that other people are coming from it from different ways. And
yeah. So for me, grievance is about outcome.
right.
So are you perpetuating something? Like, is your joke just off color, or is it literally like, is it useful to someone bad?
Oh yeah.
That's my threshold, right? With like the Dave Chappelle stuff, some of it was just trashy, and that's fine. And some of it was like, oh, somebody could use this. This could have political use to somebody. Because when I started hearing like the TDS guys talking about how good it was, I was like, oh, this is bad. This anything a Nazi can use is a problem.
Oh, yeah.
Because that means that they can use it as a weapon. But like other stuff that's just kind of like a little bit like, you could tell an edgy joke and not punch down. I was talking with somebody the other day that's a Twitter personality, and he was like, yeah, he was like, you could totally be super edgy and trashy, and it doesn't have to end up like ending with like a joke about homos or whatever,
Yeah, of course. Like there's ways to use any kind of like quote unquote stereotype in a joke, but you can use that for subversion. You can use that. You can rely on prior knowledge of this stereotype to make the joke work. Like you can do all that stuff and quote be edgy, even along like racial or sexual orientation or gender identity lines. But you could do all of that without making the joke that this identity is bad. And,
there's the reason that American comedy punches down, and that's because American comedy is a for-profit. I always remind people, like, when they're like, oh, Louis C.K., I'm like, correct, but you need to go further and go like, what creates this atmosphere where punching down is rewarding? It's because people pay for it. And why do those people pay for it? Because they've been taught by the people above them that their problems are coming from below. Again, you got to always think like you said, the contextual thing. What caused this? Right. What caused this sentiment? It's not inherent. It's not a Hobbesian thing that humans like to punch down. What's the culture that informed it?
So who is it okay to? What norms are it okay to violate? So, actually, I'm getting getting dangerously close to starting an hour-long conversation about comedy. So, I actually it's something that I legit love talking about. But like I said, now I'm almost completely gone off the camera because it's getting late and I did not set up a light in advance, so I'm for real gonna call it there.
What's the time over there?
It's almost 9:00 over here.
Your EST?
No. I forget, my computer is an EST. I'm not an EST. It's complicated. But I did promise I would do things with my husband.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
But seriously, I did very much enjoy our chat. I'm glad that I think this is healthy. I'd love to do it again. And
yes, absolutely.
I fully support like not alienating anybody from communities far and wide within reason. So I hope we can do it again, and I hope this has contributed something positive, however small, in my tiny little channel. Hopefully it contributed something positive to the overall scene, Daddy-O.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of us are struggling with personal stress right now. Yeah. I hope that being conciliatory in a constructive way will help us we need solidarity more than ever right now.
Right. Absolutely.
If we pull apart and we bite and gnash at each other without cause right now, simply because of otherization, and not because of substance, not because somebody was called somebody the N word or something. Like if it's just literally like, oh, you're one of those bros, that's to me that's not adequate. Like, what did this person do? How are they participating in destructive power? If it's just literally, well, I like listening to Chapo. My concern is like, did Kreisman say something that like endorses something destructive? Amber said that to me is something to really like lock horns over. If it's just literally like somebody listens to,
Yeah, someone can listen
I
to
don't
something
know,
without being enormously impacted by it, right?
right? As long as you don't sort of come out and like, well, they're unimpeachable. Then it's like, again, you're standing in the don't stand in the crossfire. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can say I watch it. I don't take accountability for everything that happens on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, everything that comes out of the person's mouth is not even my favorite podcast. My favorite podcast is Bodega Boys. You know what that is?
I think I've heard of it. Yeah.
Jesus and Mero. They're on Showtime.
I apologize. I don't listen to many podcasts.
No,
Uh,
that's fine.
I mostly
My favorite podcast has its little. Again, they're from the Bronx. They're like me, and every so often they get a little, an oof, and 9 times out of 10 they go, oh, sorry, and they'll pull it out. But on the 10th time, it's like, if somebody asks me, oh, you listen to Bodega, goes, yeah, and when they said this, I go, well, I don't really, So that's kind of the simple thing, is to kind of like try to ask. Here's what I'm going to say. If someone goes, oh, you listen to Tampa, and go like, tell me something specific that you're angry about, and I'll tell you what my position is. And that can be a constructive.
Oh, of course, yeah. Okay, sweet.
Because the broader and the flatter the attack is, the more you can be undermined.
All right. Well, the conversation doesn't end here. There's always, we still have our social medias, we still have Twitter. So,
Sure.
yeah. But I hope that for anyone listening, either now or maybe in the future, if you've watched this back on a video, that we take this like this air of constructiveness, and my words are failing me. We take the whole vibe that we built in this conversation,
Sure.
and continue it in a healthy and productive way. So, Fox, thank you so much for reaching out for me to do this. I do think it was a healthy conversation. I'm not sure how much I added to it, but at least I
think you did. I think you did a great job. I think that you did a good job of helping. I have a tendency to bloviate from time to time, and you helped me to crystallize my points, which is what a good interviewer does.
all right.
So it's really worked out. Thank you, buddy. I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
I'll talk to you soon, man. You have a really good one.
You too. Thank you.